Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how I use textures specifically in my animations. So I use a lot of textures, whether that's by using different brushes or patterns. I've used textures as backing for paper cuts, paper folding, and even had those scanned into the computer to print on fabric. I have a collection of textures which I've put into two packs on my Gumroad called the Mega Pack and the Favourites Pack. All are high resolution colour textures and come with a commercial license. This is so that you can use them on your illustrations and animations and any other crafting project you have without having to pay an extra fee if you want to sell the design later on. So as long as you don't just resell the textures and claim you made them, you're good. So the texture I'm using for this video is one I've made. It's also on my Gumroad in both the packs and as a free single texture. This is so if you can't afford a texture pack just yet, you can use it on your own projects and follow along with the tutorial if you want to. I'll leave all the links in the description if you want to check those out. Now there's three ways that I use texture in my animations. The first two can be done in pretty much any program, but the third one is TV Paint specific because that's what I use most often. There may be a similar feature in another program, but I haven't used them all, so if you do use a different program and there is a similar way to do it, let me know down in the comments. So onto the first way. A lot of the time I will convert my coloured textures into grayscale and import one or two into the animation. I'll put them on top of either the background or the character, and I'll then play with the opacity so it's not too distracting from the animation. If I'm using a coloured texture, I'll experiment with the blending modes to see if I like the adjustment more than the original, because I might not want something too brightly coloured if I'm working on a sad scene, but the grain might be just what I'm looking for. The second way I'll add texture is I'll choose a single image that I like in colour or grayscale and copy it onto 4 frames in the timeline. In each frame I'll then flip, rotate or resize, and when I play it through on top of my animation, it usually looks like it took a lot longer to make than it did in reality. I work at 25 frames a second, and if I'm working with a texture like this, I'll usually make each adjustment of the texture last for 4 frames and then set it to a loop in TV Paint. I can adjust the blending modes and opacity to get the look I want, but a lot of it is trial and error and seeing which version I prefer. The third way I'll add texture to an animation is to isolate the texture to a certain layer rather than have it just play over the whole thing. I think one of the most useful features in TV Paint, which I use almost every time I open the program, is the stencil function, which acts much like a clipping mask, except you can choose to invert it as well and draw on the transparent area too. All I need to do is make sure my texture lasts for as long as my animation does. Then I need to activate the stencil function on the layer I want the texture to be applied to, and click it once more so I can only reference the transparent pixels. I'll then highlight all the frames on my texture layer and click delete on my keyboard. This will cut out my stenciled layer on my texture, and after that I can adjust the opacity or blending modes however I like. A lot of what I do is trial and error. I usually add 1 or 2 textures to any animation I make, whether it's placed over the whole thing or just on certain layers. I do use a lot of my own textures simply because 1, they're fun to make, and 2, if I want to sell a design or something later on, I don't have to worry about finding and purchasing a commercial license for those textures. I hope you took something from this tutorial, even if it was just to see how I do things. If you do want to download the texture I used in this video or purchase a texture pack, they are both on my Gumroad and I will put the links in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back with another video real soon. Bye!